Hello, team. Welcome back to another Line Warcast, the final Line Warcast of 2022. Two teams today on Alpha Team: El Mexican in blue, Googie Megan in red, D-Lin in orange, AK Misk in teal, and on Bravo Team: Notorious Nubs in pink, E-Hot in green, Ben Play 27 in purple, and someone said that my nickname sucks in black. We can see that Bravo Team can pick all the places that there is pink, and Alpha Team can pick all the places that there is blue. We can see that Alpha Team is going to take the left-hand side of the map. Undetermined where Bravo Team is going to go, but there are 5 trade routes on the left-hand side of the map here for Alpha Team. One trade route in the back for Bravo Team, who has immediately gone for this with pre-construction money. Ben Play 27 building a port and a town alongside Notorious Nubs, and Nickname getting the other port and town in the north. So that will start generating a lot of economy for Bravo Team. Alpha Team's got already a town and port. AK's is working on these two. Presumably at some point, pardon me, Googie Megan in red is gonna get the bottom town and port, and then Deedlin will be able to get the northern ones. Someone is going to have to get over to this other little island to complete a lot of the trade routes, but it's a pretty good setup from both teams with the economy. 3 factories in an airport for, I think this is Nubs. Yes, this is pink and for Nubs. And then Ehad going for 4 factories to the west. 3 factories for Nickname, who is going to have to deal immediately with probably Deedlin and potentially Mexican, who's going for commando drop. So this plane is likely going to drop onto this island, like we just mentioned. Mexican following up with 2 tanks, and of course a barracks pumping commandos to be able to get into the transport plane. Barracks and dock for AK. The dock is probably a good place, especially because there's the majority of the oil for Bravo Team will have to come from those water refineries. 2 factories and a barracks, and also a town on the way for red. And it's going to be a pretty big fight against E-Hot and red here, Googie Megan. And this will be a very important part of the map. Both teams are going to be able to kind of... It'll be interesting to see where Nubs decides to reinforce and where Mexican decides to reinforce, because there's going to be 2 distinct battles that kind of go on. This northern fight between Nickname and Deedland, and then the southern fight between Ehad and Googie Megan. Which, if I'm saying that name wrong, I'm just going to keep saying it. And I apologize. 2 more barracks for AKA. And here comes the little push from red. Airport for Nubs, so there's going to have to be SAMs at some point for Alpha Team. And now at this point, Mexican's going for helicopters after the 1 transport jet, and also going for a refinery. Just a mix of artillery and infantry in the north for Deedlin. No SAMs as of yet. There won't need to be any SAMs. Gas for Nickname, who's presumably going for all 3 factories making tanks, which is always a good call. 3 tanks from Nubs going to support this refinery for Bravo Team, and then potentially could even just run around this Red Army and start sniping producers. 3rd factory on the way for red. And here comes your first fight of the game between Ehad and AK. Ehad's a little bit outnumbered in the teal and will start backing up, which is definitely the right play. And in the north, here's first contact between Deedlin and Nickname, who now has 3 tanks on the way. Merchant boats are out for Bravo Team, so that's generating economy at the moment. No trade route as of yet for Alpha Team, but the first one will be showing up relatively soon, as this port for red is almost done. And with 3 tanks and enough artillery and infantry, this gas is relatively safe for now. It's just going to depend on if helicopters show up. There's no SAMs for Bravo Team at the moment, so helicopters could do a lot of damage down here. AK is going for a airport, pardon me, I almost called this a dock as well. And now 4 tanks for Mexican, who is finally... who the gas now finishes. First SAM's on the way for blue, another factory for Deedlin in the north, who is starting to make SAMs. And it looks like Nickname is just gonna stockpile some tanks and then decide what to do with it after. Depot for purple. BenPlay27, who is going for tanks out of this factory. At least we see one of them. And Nubs is going to be sharing the gas with BenPlay27. In team games, if you build a depot, you can connect it to your teammate's refinery or power plants, and they'll be able to share gas with you if you so choose. And economy is shared through contiguous territories with your allies. And I believe the more territories that you have, the quicker you can send money. Here comes a big tank thrust from Ehud with 8 tanks. Nubs can potentially get the tanks also involved, and that's exactly what's going to happen. This is a ton of tanks. Helicopters from Mohican are going to have to get down here to help defend, and this is where we see the first helicopter on the way. The second one will be here in a second. 5 tanks from Mohican maybe could do a reach around to hit the gas, which would be huge. A supporting factory for red, which I definitely like, because that is going to turn into a big fight that requires a lot of reinforcements. And so far, gas problems for Nubs, because there's only one refinery up. We probably will expect to see another refinery relatively quickly. BenPlay's got a second refinery in the water already, and is likely sharing that as well with Nubs, who's broken through, has 1 tank on the factories. And as long as Bravo Team doesn't lose this gas, this is all great. This many tanks for Bravo Team can definitely clear this army. The one problem they're going to have is these 2 helicopters now are going to be able to go unopposed. There's also a gas issue for the pink tanks, and now 5 reinforcing blue tanks, which will be able to do a ton of damage here. But of course, Mohican's dealing with the same problem with the gas. The gas is such a huge question in this game. 2 more factories for Nickname to get 5 in total, and 6 tanks for Nickname are going to be able to get on top of this gas. I suspect even if there's 1 helicopter here, it doesn't have gas, and 2 commandos, which will be used in the defense, which is definitely the right call. It just depends on if they can destroy some of these tanks before they get on top of this gas. Going big picture here, Deedlin's going through for a push through the center, can maybe link up with Mohican here. But with 6 tanks pretty much already for Nubs, those tanks alone can probably clean all of this up with the help of the infantry. Tanks are quite good against infantry. Deedling getting a good like northern surround on Nickname. This gas is relatively exposed. Nickname joining their refinery via a depot with BenPlay's refinery. We've seen team games where the team that has the gas under control, they generally can dictate the pace of the game. And so it's important for both teams to be keeping up on the gas. AK going for 2 airports, building strikers. That's a great unit to just over time, if you can sit and build up enough numbers, it's just a huge striker swarm, and it is extraordinarily good as long as, again, they have the gas to do it. The 5 tanks for Nickname got in and sniped 1 of the gases and are now working on the town. And Nickname's just going straight tanks out of all these factories. There's some artillery showing up now, but Nickname with... If these tanks can keep moving, this is a huge win. 2 more barracks on the top for Nickname to start taking back a lot of this northern territory. And in general, a little bit of a standoff. This big tank push is great. Mohican's tanks are out of gas, which is the only problem, the only reason that they're not able to defend. And this is so tragic, because these tanks are really close to get this tank, but Nickname's microing it. 1 striker there should be able to take it out. This factory will definitely go down for red. Potentially even another factory. Helicopter for Nubs is a huge addition here. There's no SAMs for Alpha Team as of yet. So these 2 helicopters will be able to keep attacking. A bunch of tanks for Ehud, who will be able to send those off at any point now, really. I think like it's enough tanks. There's 6 of them. It's just a question of gas, as always. This depot doesn't seem to be hooked up to the rest of the infrastructure. A power plant on the way for Ehud to power those tanks. And Nickname's tanks in the forest, in conjunction with Nubs' tanks and kind of the west here. This should be a cleanup for Bravo team. And Nickname's trying to get through here. It's a good blob of units from Deedlin that are body blocking these tanks a little bit, and quite a number of artillery that are already deployed, so they're just hammering away at these tanks. I think these tanks are definitely going to perish, especially since they're unfortunately on a blue dot right now. Industry for Deedlin and another factory. This in fact does get cleaned up for Bravo team. And let's see, are there any more tanks left in the back? This one tank for Nickname got cleaned up. AK now has 5 strikers. Almost 8, which is going to be a huge win. We need to we look at the SAM counts right now. Nubs has 2 SAMs on the way. Here comes all these tanks from EHOT going for the push. And what looks to be one more barracks and one more factory for Nickname, who's ready to push out of this forest. It's such a good defensive position in this forest for Nickname. But that being said, Deedlin has this mountain range, and this could buy a lot of time, be a very strong defensive position. Mohican could help out as well. Mohican's going for the town on this little island, which will be able to connect to this port. Luckily, this was not the port that was destroyed. I mean, I guess Nickname did stop one of the trade routes from going, though, by destroying that other town, which was connecting to the southernmost town and port owned by Red. Here come these 5 strikers helping out against these tanks. That's actually huge for Bravo team. Or for Alpha team, pardon me. And a dig in from Nubs, which I kind of like in this open field. Rocket, the first rocket of the game from Ben Play right in the forest here, which will be a great defensive rocket. Can't really be used super offensively. I'm not sure it would actually reach anything. I don't even know if it'll reach this artillery line, but that could be okay. It might not matter. Great pickoff from Nubs on those tanks, and at the same time Mohican picking off some of Nickname's tanks here. Nickname's got another factory on the way, so at this point it's a 7 factory, 3 barracks. Actually, pardon me, 4 barracks build for Nickname, who has a decent number of commandos in the north to cap back all that territory. Ben Play's got a city, and here comes the rocket for Alpha team. Googie Megan going for the Alpha team's first rocket. Industry for AK, which is a great play. And industry for Red as well on the bottom. Industry seems to be a very important thing in team games, just because, or rather, teams will build industry quicker than in 1v1s or 2v2s, right? Like, the more players there are, the less territory is generally readily available to cap. And as soon as, you know, players can't cap anymore for free, building industries is the next logical thing to do, and really keeps both teams even with the economy. Mohican's tanks in the south. Good defensive line from Ben Play, which is going to buy a bunch of time as long as Bravo team, pardon me, doesn't lose the flank with these tanks. There should be a hole, but it's quite a few tanks from Mohican. And the tanks are just going to try to drive by and get on the factory. I don't actually mind that play. Big push from Red, who's putting down another factory. It's very close to the front lines, but it might not die because this is quite the artillery and infantry ball, and these tanks for EHOT are running into the fight. Unfortunately, a little bit 1v1, 1 by 1, pardon me. And here comes the backup. Good play from Green here. These tanks are doing a lot better. The numbers are more favorable. But here comes this mass of strikers that AK has now invested in and are almost done. And over time, if those strikers don't get whittled down, they will become an enormous problem as long as they have the gas. We can just check the DPS of these helicopters hovering over the artillery. They've cleared like, what, 5 pieces now in the top left of the screen. Very strong play. There's no SAMs here. Tank battles. Mohican gets one of the factories. And Bravo team's going to need potentially a little bit of help. It's good because pink and purple have tanks here. But there needs to be an answer for these helicopters, because every time those helicopters get to hover over the target, they do so much damage. Pink going for a drive-by. I'm not really... Or purple, pardon me, going for a drive-by for Bravo team. Not really sure if Bravo team can see this rocket as of yet. Rockets have a little bit of natural stealth built in to their building type. So this isn't a guarantee because tanks have a very poor vision. Red's continuing to push to try to get at some of this power. I'm not sure it's going to work given the number of tanks for Bravo team and the 2 helicopters defending. And Nub's continuing to go for helicopters. Checking the north. And this is potentially why. I mean, helicopters are super, super strong. No SAMs as of yet for nickname. And I'd imagine this is a relatively uncomfortable feeling if you're nickname. With this much yellow artillery about to enter the forest. These infantry and commandos in the north are doing a great job to stall a lot of the yellow reinforcements from continuing on to the front. And here come 5 SAMs for Bravo team at this point. And they'll be able to destroy the helicopters quite quickly. It's just that they need to be in position and there need to be no SAMs around them. Or pardon me, like... There needs to be no tanks around them that can just destroy them. Like 3 tanks from Mohican here might be able to take out all 5 SAMs. Good counter push from purple with the 6 tanks to try to make a stand here. Nickname now has 2 SAMs, which will help out tremendously here. Because I think some of these SAMs will go down for pink. Green has lost the defensive line on the refinery. So a little bit of a scary situation, but Green has planes on the way. Gas situation for Bravo team seems relatively okay. Let's see what 2 SAMs for nickname can do against these blue helicopters. The SAMs are no longer in the forest. They will likely get 1 helicopter, and they do. But now the SAMs have been dispatched. These helicopters are coming in clutch, I think, for Alpha team. In the north, nickname's not really making any more progress on containing Beetland, or rather breaking through onto the industry and the production. And where are these rockets? Rocket for purple is now ready. The rocket is 2/3 of the way done for red, and great play from Ben Play 27. The Ben Play of the game to just drop on these factories. The 2 commandos aren't be able to, they're probably not going to be able to kill a factory here, but it forces all these units to stay at home. And for these artillery pieces to retreat. This many tanks for green, they're going to be able to snipe at least the forward factory. Unless, of course, 30 gazillion planes have anything to say about it. More factories for Nubs. This makes a lot of sense. Nubs is in the central part of the map. And how both teams use their rockets is an open question. Here comes another attack by Blue's helicopters. There's only about 4 SAMs for Bravo team that could do anything about this, although I'm not sure if the pink SAMs are going to be in range. And nickname actually does get one of the buildings. My apologies. I didn't think this was going to work. I did not think this was going to happen. Port is now up for Mohican, so there's 2 trade routes again for Alpha team, and we hear the rocket for Googie Megan. That is done. Could destroy the refinery. It could destroy these SAMs that open up the skies for all of these strikers of AKA. Not really sure where this is going. I think there's a lot of different places that would make sense. And it looks like it is in fact going to be on the refinery. It will destroy the refinery and get a bunch of the SAMs, all but 3. Benplay's got a decent number of tanks, and there's actually quite a few helicopters for Bravo team as well. Here comes the purple rocket, and it looks like the placement was about as good as you can imagine. It opens up this whole field. There's a lot of tanks for Bravo team between Benplay and nickname that could just go rushing across here, and there's now a number of SAMs that can probably deal with how many helicopters there are for Blue. Commandos getting behind enemy lines and scout for sure that there is no trade route in the north, at least. For Alpha team, which is a big positive for Bravo team. I mean, if you're Bravo team and you see that there's no trade route there, that's a very good sign. The strikers have hit a critical mass that they're able to do a ton of damage. There's still no SAMs down here, and at this point there'd probably need to be 2 full flowers of SAMs for Bravo team to be able to deal with these strikers, or there need to be interceptors. Nubs has 1 already built, potentially more on the way. And still 1 more commando for Nickname being super annoying and filtering more. There's 2 sub-pens for Nickname in the top. AK has got a great location for these 3 destroyers. The destroyers have, like, they have better detection against submarines. They have bonus damage against submarines, and it's a great place to put them because Nickname really wouldn't be able to get these submarines out of here without these destroyers noticing and potentially shutting them down. Southern push is going to go very well for Alpha team here. There's not really much from Bravo that can show up to defend this. Unfortunately, these SAMs for Nubs aren't going to be dug in time. The tanks from Green should be able to keep the infantry off of the SAMs, but it's just such a number of strikers that they will probably destroy them, and unfortunately for Green, the tanks are out of gas. So this is now becoming a problem for Bravo team in the south, especially if this infrastructure starts going down. Red building another very aggressive factory. Given the situation, I think that's like one of the best plays that can happen. There's very little chance that this factory gets destroyed, especially with the SAM coverage here. 2 strikers for Green, or 2 interceptors, pardon me, for Green, which is huge to help clear this out, but it's the ground army that's now the problem. This push by Alpha team is likely not going to work, unfortunately for them. There's a number of artillery at home. The defensive lines are in a very good spot because it forces any units that want to go around them to the north to go through the mountains, and it takes way longer for units to travel through the mountains. And anything through the south has to deal with all these helicopters. As soon as these SAMs get here, the helicopters are going to find it very, very difficult to be able to do anything. And here's another one that gets popped. So it's a huge artillery army for yellow with blue tanks against some combined arms for Bravo team. And Alpha's got to this mountain range, and they're going to take out these 3 factories for Green, and this is going to be tough. So a little bit of a base trade in some sense. Alpha team making great gains in the south, but maybe losing in the north. It's hard to say because there's just so many planes for AKA that are coming in clutch. This many purple tanks, if they were able to get on top of all this artillery, they might be able to clear it, but it's just such a great location that all these helicopters are, and the air superiority really going in Alpha team's favor at the moment. Eco-wise, I think that Alpha team probably has a better economy at this point with the 2 trade routes. More industry for Mohican on the way in that far left island. I think one of the best things going on for Bravo team here is that this front is actually collapsing. But really the SAMs need to be kept alive. I mean, there's 4 SAMs for Nickname in the forest now, which is absolutely huge. And there's only 3 more helicopters left for Blue. I think 2 more. I think this one SAM is going to be able to get that helicopter with that last hit. A push developing from Mohican through the center of the map. There's really not much here. Nubs is building 2 more factories in the central location, which makes a lot of sense. And EHOT rebuilding this 1 factory. Benplay putting down 3 more factories. There's another launch pad. I don't know if those are both Benplay's rockets. And I don't know if Nickname's just lost the subs. I haven't been able to see. Obviously, there's a lot going on in this game, as there are in most 4v4s. But those 4 destroyers are still here in this perfect location. This is certainly breaking now, and Deedlin's going to be in trouble. I suppose Nick or Mohican can probably cut off a bunch of units to the center, or maybe even start applying pressure to the south of Nickname's base to at least force a bunch of these units to like sit at home and defend instead of attacking at D-Land. Huge rocket. Huge rocket. Luckily for Nubs, a bunch of the SAMs stay alive, but for Purple, I mean, how many was this? Like six SAMs that died? And now AKA with off of this 3 and about to be 4 airports is gonna have, I mean, potentially just like a free reign with the strikers. I mean, really, there could just be a kind of a dot command here, and this many strikers would do great. AK is building another gas. Makes a lot of sense. AK is going for a very heavy air style. And in the north, Nickname's making gains and taking back all that territory from Yellow. There's nothing behind enemy lines right now. And this little flag on this airstrip means that Red's built this airstrip and has turned on airfield sharing with allies. So all these planes for AK could land there if they decided to. Huge infantry army for Teal, going for a push. And unfortunately, this barracks and factory for Green are going to be in front of this defensive line. It's a very long defensive line, but if Purple can set up enough units and get them there in time to fill this up, it could buy a lot of time. This is tough. It's just such a number of planes. And 5 SAMs are doing their best. But won't be able to maybe even get 1 plane. There's actually a number of interceptors here. And what I want to see is if this rocket destroys a bunch of planes. It's probably going to go right at this mountain range, which would make a lot of sense. And luckily for Purple, this is going to get quite a few planes. Okay, I lied. It gets 1 plane, but it gets the entire ground army. Here comes another rocket for Purple. This one probably not as cost effective. Both the airstrips stay up. The unfinished refinery does go down. Another rocket for Red, a third of the way done, and another airport for AKA. Big push from the center, and still watching this. I guess this isn't actually a done deal quite yet, but I think numbers-wise with this SAM coverage, Nickname is going to be able to take this and then start pushing down to the south and applying pressure to Mohican from the north. Good defensive line from Nickname, or like the grouping up and staying at home. It actually is a defensive line, so this would buy a bunch of time in case Mohican decided to push in through the forest. And now with the infantry soaking for all this black artillery, I think that is now a done deal. It's just a matter of time. 4 tanks for Nubs, pardon me, are going to the north to reinforce. And can Purple, Green, and Nubs to an extent in pink hold on in the south against this army of planes and factory units from Red and Teal with another rocket on the way? Huge question, but that's why we watch Line War, because we want to find out. 3 SAMs is really the perfect number of SAMs given how many airplanes there are. For a Bravo team, taking out 1 interceptor probably could take out more, depending if this interceptor gets too close. And when the SAMs are doing the machine gun noise, that's actually when they're doing the most DPS. It technically got nerfed in this latest patch, but it is still quite good. AK is now helping out in the top, and I guess with that many planes, it was able to wipe out all the SAMs of Nickname. This is a huge setback for Bravo team, so Nickname is going to start pushing out into the center of the map to get aggressive. I think that is the play. Great flower of SAMs from Mohican in the forest for the stealth ability. And also when units go into the forest, they move slower, so it buys the SAMs a little bit of time to maneuver and get out of there. And a relatively healthy number of helicopters left for Mohican in the north. Deedland's starting to build back closer to the allies, assuming that these 2 factories and like where this starting base for Deedland was, assuming that it's going to be destroyed. This is good forward thinking. And AK is finally found. these sub pens and are getting rid of them. There's no other sneaky docks for either team. So it's 5 airports from AK against 4 airports from Bravo team. Where this rocket goes is a huge question, and there's still 2 launch pads for Bravo team, which are huge assets, especially as Red comes crashing up against this defensive line, because the units are going to naturally be held up. Wonderful rocket from Red that destroys 2 factories, heavily damages the airport. Doesn't get any of the units, however, but there's so many strikers for AK. So the closer Nickname gets to AK's base, I don't know where I said there's no sneaky docks. Okay, so there are sneaky docks. Of course there's sneaky docks. How are we watching a game with Nickname and we just don't assume that there are sneaky docks? The sub pens in the north were just a ruse for like this many destroyers to just rip by everything off of 3 docks up in the left-hand side. I don't even know how this was captured. And these destroyers might actually get rid of another refineries. So it's like the ultimate backdoor play off of 3 docks. There's no missile boats, but these hasted strikers make me feel that if these refineries go down, that Alpha Team's going to have gas problems, and then that gets rid of one of their biggest strategic bonuses, which is all these strikers. Purple going through a push now. There's enough numbers that I think this could work. Definitely Purple needs to keep the SAMs alive, I think. I mean, Nubs has a bunch of SAMs at this point. And all the planes going to the back for AK is obviously huge for Bravo team because they're allowed to push. There's still a, I mean, I guess, never mind. There's still a whole army of, or a whole air force of planes that are able to get into the fight. And there's no real grouping of SAMs, unfortunately, for Bravo team. They're all on the move. And at this point in the very far south, there's more SAMs to deal with those strikers. One heck of a game. Deedlin's starting to push back again in the north. Gonna run into a bunch of commandos, but as long as there's enough artillery, they'll be able to spot and destroy those commandos. AK has found these docks. AK is unfortunately out of gas because of this gas snipe. And Nickname's boats are not out of gas. And this destroyer is actually going to get another refinery. Rocket from Purple, I think probably looked like it... Did it even destroy things? I'm not even sure. It might look like it exploded, but it may not have actually gone off. Sometimes that happens. Great play from Mohican to get behind and destroy this one refinery. It will certainly go down, and at this point Mohican could probably just follow these pipelines. And then gas situation will be important and interesting to see if Bravo team can actually send anything up to the north to deal with those commandos. Town and port goes down for Alpha team. What a snipe by Nickname. Still hasn't gotten the refinery in the south, but certainly will at some point. The good news for AK and Alpha team is that they've destroyed the 3 docks from Nickname. I'm not sure what we'll be able to... If 3 destroyers will be able to destroy this town before all of these boats show up to defend, but because AK is out of gas, and in fact Alpha team I think in general is out of gas, Nickname might be able to just keep pushing, destroying another city, and that's exactly what's going to happen. The destroyer in the south has been cleaned up for now, but these destroyers are going to definitely get the city, and they likely could destroy the other dock. Jeez, what a play. 3 docks in a random spot, and the way this works is that I assume that Nickname somehow got subs here, maybe even went around the north of the map and just sprinted by those destroyers, cap the water territory, which then allows you to build docks on the land. As long as you own the water territory, you can actually build a dock in the water. Big defense. This infantry is digging in. Holy cow, gun went flying. That's kind of wild. This artillery is not going to be able to dig in time because it's going to come under fire. But it's all about buying time for Bravo team. Deedlin's now reconstituted a bunch of forces. There's more factories for Deedlin, who's now on like 6 factories again. And it's a very annoying situation in the back with all these boats, and it's the gas that's going to become a problem. I'm not really sure if either teams are thinking of making power plants at this point. But going big picture, we can see like earlier in the map, you know, where that median line, pardon me, in the center of the map of where, you know, Alpha Team controls on the left, Bravo Team controls on the right. It does seem like Alpha Team's been able to carve out a lot more in the bottom. Are going to run right into this defensive line for purple. And unfortunately for red, they're going to have to go through this mountain range to get in range of all this artillery. The artillery in entrenchments will actually get a range bonus and a defense bonus against red's artillery, so I don't think this is going to actually work. But in the north, Nickname's doing a decent job to begin to push through the center, but with Mohican's units and also this force of Deedlin that's shown up again, Nickname's also out of gas because the depot actually does go down. These 5 commandos for Mohican are doing work. I think that Alpha Team's going to be able to clear the top. Nickname's built 2 docks in the north. These are getting spotted by the artillery. Huge battle of tanks in the forest, but for Bravo Team, the purple tanks are going to go down, so Mohican's going to be able to keep that location with all those SAMs, which is important. There's not a ton of planes for Bravo Team. 3 bombers and a bunch of strikers that their only job is to probably get rid of these commandos. And that's exactly what's happening. And bombers against commandos, I'm not really sure how that looks or how quickly those will get cleaned up. The 5 airports for AK still have a bunch of strikers. The only problem is that there's not enough gas to actually run them. And we're looking for rockets. At some point there's going to be another rocket. Both teams probably have at least one on the stand. We can see that red has a rocket ready. The rocket could be placed right here, I think, and it would destroy a lot of things in this defensive line. There's no SAMs for purple to be able to shoot it down. And Nickname's in trouble because Nickname's getting squeezed here by both blue and yellow. And Deedlin's now got a decent amount of navy. We can see AKA's boats trying to go to the north to cut off these docks before they're built. And something on Alpha Team was being destroyed with C4, so somebody is looking for money on Alpha Team, and I wonder if it's to make more power plants. Mohican's got 2. There could be more. Here comes this rocket we were talking about. Red absolutely read my mind there and put it in the exact spot we were thinking, and here comes a push from red. I'm sure that push will, or the push will probably red will probably push at this point, and that's exactly what happens. Nubs breaking this containment in the north is actually relatively important, I think, because this army from pink could put a lot of pressure on this advancing red army potentially. And holy cow, it's still so many planes for AK, but there's just not enough gas. Yeah, Nickname's definitely hit a problem scenario here with 2 full armies attacking all this production. Both the docks are going to go down, certainly. I think this artillery can even help out the boats attack, and this is what's happening. All the boats are out of gas. Kind of funny to watch. And the town was taken out, so Mohican's commandos are certainly the things that destroyed that. Great number of SAMs for Alpha Team pushing all these airports, all these helicopters. Definitely going to get at least 2 helicopters, probably even 3. Rocket for purple needs to be absolutely on the money here, because otherwise this is looking very poor for Bravo Team, I think. I think this is the beginning of the end. It's relatively okay in that it got all of the SAMs for Alpha Team. So maybe that rocket will end up being a huge play. AKA is destroying Nickname's dock. And Nickname's in trouble. None of these trade routes have been taken again. EHOT has one commando in the back capping. Super sneaky. I mean, he can still got a good number of helicopters. And now Nickname's in a situation where, like, none of the units that are built out of these factories can really be SAMs, because they all have to be artillery to be able to fight this huge army from Mohican and Deedland, which, to the Alpha Team's credit, they're actually going around this forest from Nickname instead of trying to run into the meat grinder, which would be the forest where Nickname has the defender's advantage. Great play from Nubs to keep all these airplanes on the ground for AKA. The tanks can maybe even snipe the airstrips if they can see this after they're done here. And that guarantees that AKA still can't fly planes. Mohican's got helicopters, and Mohican must have gas or energy security from the refineries and the airstrips, or pardon me, and the power plants. And yeah, AK is going to start destroying a bunch of these airstrips with planes on them, potentially to afford power plants. Deedland pushing in the north. These artillery are going to get to the barracks, and here comes the moment of truth, I think. In line war in general, when one player is knocked out on your team, it's very difficult to get back because the team doesn't receive as much you're always going to be behind on economy when you lose one player. Especially in such a central location, because there's really no other player on Bravo team that can fill this void in the north. And without this position forest from Nickname, yellow and blue are just going to be able to push across the north half of the map. And then with, you know, the north half of the map all the way up to the town being capped economically, Alpha Team's in a phenomenal situation. So here comes Bravo Team's, like, last push. This would be, like, this has to do a ton of damage or the game is over sort of situation. But even that, Nickname is in super trouble. And there's bombers and strikers on the airports, but they can't really reach this forest for Nickname, and it's such a large army for Deedland. Helicopters versus helicopters and SAMs. Obviously the helicopters that have the SAM support are going to win. The one tank actually helps take out 2 of the SAMs for Alpha Team, so that's a big win for Pink. Great digging from Red to buy more time. And this would buy a ton of time. Like, I don't even know what... Purple and green, ideally, I think, need to continue to push, but now that these units are dug in, it's a little bit more difficult to do. And of course, no one can get to Nickname to help defend this. The gases are starting to get rebuilt. After destroying a bunch of the airstrips and buildings, AK is going to be able to get energy security again. And, yeah, that's it. Well played. Good game. What a game. Great map. Great battles. That's 4v4 for you folks. If you aren't aware, team games and free-for-all are now live in Line War. Join the Discord if you'd like to learn more. Check out the Steam page. Check out the stream. I stream on Twitch. SodaQuackers is the same name. Let's look at some graphs. We've been told we gotta look at more graphs. Let's look at the energy. That's an important one for both teams. Yeah, battle of gases. But Alpha Team was able to make sure that they didn't bottom out. Wild game. Folks, thank you for the support in 2022. It's much appreciated. I hope you have a wonderful new year. Happy holidays. We'll see you in 2023. Looking forward to it. Absolutely excited. And again, thank you for the support. Thank you for the subs and the like buttons and all the comments, kind words, the whole deal. It's very much appreciated. We'll see you soon. Enjoy. Stay safe. Peace.